So we are talking Five Nights at Freddy's, and this one stars Josh Hutcherson, and of course this is based on a much beloved video game. Now, full disclosure, I'm coming at this from a point of view of someone who isn't familiar with the video games. I have heard of them. I know it was broadly based on a kind of Chuck E. Cheese kind of style, kind of aesthetic, and I know we've had a couple of movies prior to this that was kind of like loosely based on the same concept, being Banana Splits and the Nicolas Cage movie Willy's Wonderland, and they were kind of, you know, Five Nights at Freddy's without the kind of the official title. But here we have the actual kind of Five Nights at Freddy's movie, and in case you're unfamiliar, it focuses on this character called Mike, who is a security guard who is looking after his young sister that appears to have kind of learning difficulties and things like this. He's kind of obsessed with the disappearance of his brother when he was a child, seemingly abducted by a kind of, you know, stranger and never seen again. He takes a job at this kind of dilapidated pizza restaurant that is kind of based on, like, say, the American Chuck E. Cheese kind of style chain. And whilst he's there, we learn that there are these animatronic characters that have kind of these robotic kind of systems, and there may be a supernatural element involved as well. However, things take a little bit of a dark turn when these animatronics seem to have somewhat of a murderous kind of attitude towards certain things, and maybe have a little bit of a vested interest in Mike's younger sister. What will happen? You will have to watch the movie to find out. So let's discuss what we think works in this movie. So again, I am coming at this from just a movie rather than a fan of the video games, because I don't know anything about the video games. I've never played them. So there's just a perspective from as a standalone horror movie rather than a kind of, you know, based on an actual game, etc. And if you're a fan of the game, you may have a different perspective, potentially. But as a standalone film, as a kind of just a piece of entertainment on its own, what can I say that works? I think the aesthetic here is a very fun and kind of like interesting kind of idea of these kind of antagonists. And yes, its thunder has been stolen a little bit by Banana Splits and Willy's Wonderland, but still having these kind of like slightly tarnished, cute and kind of cuddly kind of characters that are large and potentially heavy and dangerous. It's a fun kind of concept, and I believe that all the kind of the puppets were done by Jim Henson's Creature Workshop, so they chose to go for practical effects rather than kind of CGI here, which I think will be greatly appreciated, and you can kind of really enjoy the kind of the prosthetic and the kind of the puppetry work here, and the visual practical effects I think are pretty well done here. I kind of quite like this kind of rundown pizzeria restaurant that they've kind of got here with all the kind of the video games all kind of dirty and tarnished. I love the setting. I actually think the setup of the movie is pretty strong with this and quite dark really, because you know, Josh Hutcherson's character Mike, we see that his brother is abducted, you know, through kind of flashbacks and things like that. So it has this kind of like serious kind of dark undertone. Obviously child abduction and things like that is nothing to kind of like to laugh at and be used as kind of entertainment, so it gives it this kind of serious kind of edge. I thought Hutcherson was actually kind of quite good in the role as this kind of tortured guy who's just kind of trying to cling on to his kind of family. And I know this movie is not kind of like a super adult in regards to its gore and stuff, but I didn't think it needed to be. I thought it was fine just as is. I know there are people who complain that this wasn't an 18 or an R-rated kind of movie, but I don't think it necessarily needed to be. I think it was okay, just, you know, as it is. Because it is, and I've seen this kind of labelled as kind of starter horror, like entry-level horror. If you're kind of a younger person kind of getting into horror movies, this is possibly a good one to kind of get involved in. And I would probably agree with that. You know, I think this is probably a movie that's relatively kind of scary for, you know, the younger audiences, but it's not too, you know, too gratuitous in any kind of way. And you know, again, I think the concept of these kind of animatronic kind of creatures and robots and stuff it's an interesting and fun idea. What didn't work for me, I have to say there's some plot elements here that I just felt were either silly, that narratively didn't really go anywhere, or kind of just not well developed. The character of Natasha, who is his police character, I thought added nothing to the actual story, and was actually somewhat of a detriment, if anything. I thought her character and where she fits in with the actual kind of story itself, I thought ended up being a bit silly and a bit contrived, if I'm honest, without kind of spoiling anything for you. And again, this is maybe something that was in the game but isn't in the film. I thought we have these different kind of characters. These, we have Freddy and Foxy and things like this, but they don't really have any kind of like individual personalities. They're completely interchangeable. So I thought maybe I don't know, having them being a little bit more distinct in regards to how they act, I thought would have been interesting, but they're completely interchangeable. They have no real actual kind of character. They're just kind of like a bunch of kind of like cute, cute and cuddly on the outside, but they're kind of dangerous on the inside. But they're all kind of the same. They all kind of act the same, and kind of there's no real. They're just kind of props, really, rather than characters. And again, I don't know if that was true of the game. But it's certainly not true of this movie. I think there's a lot of exposition in this film. I think some of the kind of the plot elements. I think the script is probably the weakest part, really. The time spent on certain, again, I don't want to spoil anything for you, certain kind of plot lines here that I don't feel were either resolved or things just. I mean, for example, we learn that there is a supernatural element to this kind of the proceedings here, and everyone just kind of accepts it just fine, and it just they just kind of move on. There's a kind of a mystery about the whole point of the Josh Hutcherson character. He's trying to find out information about his missing brother, and it's nothing really occurs to him. Again, I'm not trying to be vague here. We get evidence that there may be a link, and it doesn't occur to him, and it's just like, come on, if you're that obsessed with it, surely you would look. And I don't know, there's elements here that I just felt were script-wise were a bit weak, on the weaker side, and the characters were a little broad. We have a group of characters that break into the restaurant. There's a subplot here about the kind of the Mike's auntie wanting custody of a younger sister, so she hires a group of thugs to break into this kind of place to mess it up, and she's paying them $1,000. So there's four of them. That's $250 each, and one of them is like the babysitter of this kid. And I just thought, would you really do that for $250? And like. No one goes looking for them. No one questions where they've gone. The police don't come around and ask about it. Vanessa is a character who's meant to be a police officer, but she doesn't do any work. It was a real messy script, if you ask me. And I have to be honest, I don't think it's any better than the Willy's Wonderland or Banana Splits. It's about the same. So for me, it's kind of an average film. To be honest, it wasn't bad. I enjoyed it, but it was a little bit messy and unfocused, if you want my honest opinion. So it's a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.